Okay, so before I start this video, I want to say thank you for clicking it. And this is a tips and tricks or guide for absolute beginners. So again, um, yeah. Um, the other thing is my recording software did have a little bit of problems recording it, so the frame rate problems are on my end. That's my bad. I apologize, and I'll try to do better for the next tutorials. But I just wanted to get this out there to gauge to see if I enjoy making this type of stuff and to see if you guys do. So anyway, if you do, thank you. If you do already know how to play the game or your character, you probably know these characters more than I do, as I've only played a couple of characters myself. And while I do have a rep in almost every character, I cannot say that I'm an expert at every single one. So if you are, please say so in the comments of what you know I may have gotten wrong or what could be improved on, um, or even just help people who ask comments or who ask questions in the comments, because it's a community for helping the people get into this game that I personally do love, and I hope everyone else does as well. So without further ado, I'm sorry for holding you. Thank you, and I hope you at least enjoy the video a little bit. Thank you so much. All right, to anybody who is watching this, um, I randomly decided, since I've hit about 1,200 hours in this game, I was looking around to see some videos or whatnot. And there isn't really any videos really about or trying to introduce new players to the game. I have a few friends who suddenly wanted to play For Honor, and there isn't really any good beginner-friendly tutorials for the game. So I kind of decided, why not make a tutorial type thing? Not really a tutorial, but just a tips and tricks guide to help people who are just starting out with For Honor to understand some of the in-depth mechanics or why they may be either losing their games or losing fights, or people who just want to expand their knowledge on the game, as there probably is a few of you who are like that. I wouldn't call myself some big professional expert. I am by no means a pro, but these are kind of really basic things that will help people improve. If you played this game for long enough, you probably don't need what I'm going to tell you, but I don't know. I'd say probably you stop learning a heck of a lot from For Honor once you hit around rep 70. If you only play PvP. If you play PvE, then pretty much anything goes. Bots are a whole different beast than actual people. Anyway, so my first tutorial will be on, or my first tips video will be on Warden specifically. So Warden is a Vanguard, obviously. Classes don't really mean a whole heck of a lot, so him being a Vanguard doesn't really matter. But if you have the Vanguard order, then, easiest way. The Warden's a really good pick for the Knights, because each faction only really has one Vanguard. The Knights do have two, but Warden is first and foremost. So, first things first. Any of your side light attacks, so these ones, you can click twice on one side to do a little double tap. You can't do that with the top one. And the double tap is, the second hit is unblockable, is technically guaranteed no matter what you do. Which is why it's pretty good damage to have. Your lights do get blocked, which means you'll be hit stunned if they block your light. Essentially, it'll reset you to neutral like that. So you can't continue your chain. If you do a heavy, you can continue your chain. You can go to that, which is your unblockable attack, which even after your double light there, you can go into the unblockable. You can go after the top, but it'll only be the second unblockable. I don't know controller keybinds, so you kind of have to learn that yourself. If you aren't already, feinting attacks is very useful in the game, so pressing E on PC will feint an attack. And since this attack is unblockable, so if I was to You can see here, he blocks it like that, but if I was to use the unblockable one, he gets it. So it forces people to try and parry your attack, which you can just obviously feint, and you can go quickly into guard break. So it basically guarantees you a guard break, and when you get a guard break, for Warden specifically, you get a heavy, I think it's only a side heavy. I don't think you can get a top heavy. I know I kind of just did, but the opponent's guard was not in that direction, so... So yeah. That's that. Let me try... Oh. So if I guard break and try to do top, he'll block it. Yeah. So you're guaranteed on a guard break to get a side heavy, and only a side heavy. You can also do, so you can dodge with spacebar if you haven't been. It's very useful to dodge stuff. If you dodge and press guard break, you'll do a shoulder charge. And if you hit somebody with this little, like, limp one, you're guaranteed the light attacks. This can be any light from any direction, but remember that with the top one, you don't get the double one guaranteed. So it's kind of just the one. Can you follow me over here? Thank you. So the other thing you can do with that little bash is if you hold down the button, you'll do an even larger one. If you hold it down full charge, you're guaranteed to get a heavy. And the heavy obviously does more damage. Yeah. The bash can also be feinted by pressing E. So you can go like that. So you can bait people into getting that. If they're near a wall or something, you can just throw them forward so you can get your top heavy, which obviously does a little bit more damage, which is why it's not guaranteed on the guard break. And yeah, so obviously you can just go like that and try and bait them into something like that. You could also just go like this. So you can really try to mix them up that way. Warden does have another thing where his top light, like that, can actually parry attacks that are not unblockable. It's called a crushing counter, if you don't know. Hope he does it from the top. So you can do that. Obviously, the crushing counter is going to be unblockable when you do it. So when you do the crushing counter, if you would bother to do the top one, which I don't think he will, because why would he? Do the top one. Anyway. So, yeah. And you can continue your follow-up just like that. Which, again, it's very useful. Especially when you're in pressured situations, but it only does work on your top light. Which is how it goes. So, pretty much what most Wardens will do for bread and butter stuff is like that, feint like that, one to that, soldier bash like that, double light, and continue on the pressure. Something like that. And that's essentially how you want to keep pressure as Warden if you're in a duel scenario. Warden's not particularly amazing in Dominion due to a lot of people, you know, his attacks not having too many sweeping radiuses, but he's not bad. His zone is very good like that. It can continue into his chain. You can continue into shoulder bash. And everything like that. So yeah. And that's essentially how you want to use him in those scenarios. His zone, you'd usually only use that move, really, if you're in Dominion getting ganked by a lot of people. It's a very good tool to kind of get people off you, especially if they're to this side over here, where my guard is at. And that's very good for him. It's good to get out of those scenarios. Am I missing anything? Oh, yes. You do have a dodge forward heavy. So this move, which is used to catch people who try to run away from you. So if you dodge forward, do that, you'll do a little running heavy. And of course, this thing also combos into your chain, and combo into your shoulder bash, anything like that. Out of lock, you can also press heavy to swing like that. It'll usually lock on, not in that scenario, but there you go. And when you do the little swing like that, if you lock onto someone, you can continue your stuff. Your zone attack is also used to clear minions. It's quite effective, so you do want to just go zone into unblockable. And that's that for Warden in that scenario. I think as for punishes, you don't have to worry about punishes, but for people who already know everything I just said, I'm probably going to put a timestamp at the beginning, kind of stating if you already know the really basics of his moveset, to skip here. So if you have skipped here, hello. So these are max punishes. So when you guard break and you throw someone, it is zone into a top heavy for the max amount of damage you could possibly do. To give the specifics of that, we'll do that so we can actually get some damage numbers. Okay. So there, it's about 45 damage. Yes, that's what that is. Math. I'm done. So yeah, 45 damage for the... You could also do the light one. It's a little bit less damage, but if you don't have the stamina to do the zone, then I just do the light. But that obviously does more damage this way. And if you have revenge, always use the zone into the unblockable top heavy, as you don't have to worry about stamina when you have revenge. So it's the best thing. And it's the same for revenge throws. So if you have revenge, if you didn't know, when you guard break someone, when you have revenge, it'll always knock them down, so you can always get this combo and get as much damage as possible. If you use revenge and they get knocked on the ground, it's a little different, since you can't really zone into unblockable for that. In most scenarios, I just recommend throwing out a heavy. I think you can land the top heavy, but don't quote me on that, but you probably can. So I just recommend just doing the top heavy, and that'll get you through most scenarios. Anyway, yeah. I'm pretty sure that would be it. So, to kind of recap everything, top light to parry any attacks that come from the top that are not unblockable. Do the double one to kind of help yourself keep in the move. And feint this move sometimes, so that wasn't a feint, but like that. Feint it into guard break to help trip up your opponents. Feint your bash to help trip up your opponents again. Or, obviously, sometimes throw it, get a heavy, and continue your pressure. And obviously, the last things on throws and revenge, zone into that, or light into light unblockable as well. Works just as well. But don't do the double light. I don't think that works. It does not. It is not guaranteed. So, if you are going to get the throw, then it is a single light into that. And there you go. That is kind of it for Warden. I'll probably be releasing more small tutorials for other characters, just as a small tips type thing. I understand that these are very basic information, but since I don't see many people actually talking about it, I kind of felt it's nice to at least have these out there. And yeah, I will actually also go over the feats real quick. So, alright, and we are back with Warden's feats currently. So, these are the feats you'll start out with. Due to Warden being a Year 0 character, he doesn't have any what you would call signature feats that a lot of the new characters do have, but I wouldn't say that makes him bad, or that his feats are bad. Some are a lot worse than others, but I'll go over them. So, your feats can be customized any 3 ways. And of course, you can have multiple loadouts for a character. So, yeah, I'll just go over them real quick. Body count is the first one, which It's very good for if you plan to clear the minion lane or stay around there, as killing any minions will give you both back some health and some stamina. It helps, especially if you're fighting in the minion lane as well, since doing your zone attack or stuff like that will help you regain some health and stamina alongside of it. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention, but to do the zone attack, it's light and heavy at the same time. Skip my mind. But yeah, either way. Its second feat is specifically for both teammates and for your minions. It will basically help them deal more damage, as well as... so the minions specifically will fight faster, so they'll hit faster than they usually would, which it says right there, obviously. It's good for team fights. It helps your team deal more damage, especially if you guys are in a scenario in which a lot of people are getting, ganked or in a pretty big cluster of, amalgamation of people. It's very useful for that. Second Wind is an extremely good feat. I cannot stress this enough. This feat, absurdly good. Because what it says here isn't all of what it does. So yes, it will recover some health, which is good in and of itself, since health recovery in For Honor is very hard to come by, especially when you're in mid-battle. You can run away, obviously, but a lot of opponents won't let you. So finding time to recover HP is not easy, and Second Wind kind of does it instantly and gives you a second little bit of HP. It does more than that, though, as Second Wind will also cleanse any bleed or fire damage that you have on you, on top of the HP it recovers. So that by itself is extremely good and shuts down a lot of characters that do rely on bleed, such as Nobushi, Peacekeeper, Shaman, and it just basically gives you a second chance to screw them over, and essentially screw over their whole bleed shtick. And of course, there's a lot of feats that apply fire as well as bleed, nail bomb, fire flask. They're all stuff that have fire or bleed in them, and you can essentially just completely negate that with Second Wind. And of course, it only works once, so it is what it is. As for the tier 4 feat, Catapult is not particularly amazing. It was at the time when, again, all these year 0 characters kind of had a signature faction feat, so to speak. So a majority, if not all, of the year 4 knights, or year 0 knights, have Catapult as theirs, whereas Vikings had Fire Flask and the Samurai had Aerostorm, which, again, those were the only 3 factions when the game came out. But Catapult was by far either second worst or worst. While Fire Flask outclasses all of them, Catapult isn't very good. Yes, it does a lot of damage, and I mean a lot. It'll one-shot a lot of people, if not anybody, as long as they're not in revenge, including yourself and your teammates. It will do a lot of damage. But the area is so small and it's very easy to avoid that a lot of people don't really think it's good. There are scenarios where it can be. You could chuck out Catapult and then Guard Break, and you're essentially sacrificing yourself to kill your opponent as well, which is funny to do, and again, helps somewhat if there's other people around. But overall, it's not that great, and I think Warden's got better feats than that. To move on to the second one, Warden's second first tier that he can choose is Conqueror, which basically just makes you capture zones faster. Always good. It doesn't necessarily... It does a good job at capturing stuff, obviously, and if you're playing game modes like Breach and you pick up a boost, the boost will last longer, as it says, and that obviously helps out your team. But it kind of helps it out relatively in the short term. Most of the time when you capture a zone, you don't really feel the need to capture it faster, especially in Dominion, and if you're playing duels, this is completely useless, but duels doesn't use feats anyway, so it doesn't, who cares? But yes, this feat basically only really helps in Breach, I would say. Dominion, not so much. It's not particularly amazing there. So yeah. But if you feel like you want to capture zones faster, by all means, take it. It's a good feat in that regard. As for his second tier, he has Fiat Lux, which is a small grenade that will detonate in an area and remove someone's stamina. Anybody who's in it, including yourself. So watch out. I hope that's the correct one. I could be completely wrong. Either that, or it's the one that just blinds people for a little bit, which, either way, I don't think either of these grenades are very great. I think this one just blinds, it doesn't remove stamina, in which case it's even worse. I don't like Fiat Lux, and I don't think it's a great feat, and it definitely doesn't outclass something like Inspire, or the next feat that's in the tier 2. But if you feel like having a little bit of extra screw you to your opponents, what this will help you with is your unblockables. At higher levels, people will learn how the parry timings for your attacks and your unblockables. But it'll still help you mask what you're going to do, and a lot of people may get tripped up by it, especially in the earlier levels of the game. As for your tier 3, I wouldn't even recommend choosing any of the other feats other than Second Wind, but I'll go over them anyway. So Pugna Mortis is a grenade, pretty much. It's a bomb that you throw that just deals damage. If you want easy damage, it's there. I think people can avoid it decently well, but if they're in the midst of combat, it's a very good way just to finish someone off. But that's really all it is a grenade that does damage. As for the tier 4, you have Stalwart Banner, which is, in my opinion, one of Warden's best tier 4s. But again, it's up to playstyle. But basically, this will place a banner in a pretty large radius around. All your allies, including yourself, will regain health. Now again, the description here is a little bit deceptive because it works essentially the same way that Second Wind does, where it'll completely negate fire and bleed, which is extremely useful since a lot of people like to hotbox an area with Fire Flask, or even sometimes you'll find a nail bomb or something or other. And just placing this Stalwart Banner basically helps your team out immensely. Not only does it also heal while you have Revenge and have a shield, and this means any shield, so like Centurion uses his tier 4, which gives everyone a shield. Stalwart Banner will heal through that. So you get extra HP while people basically can't touch your HP. It's very good and will help you win a lot of fights, in my opinion. So I'd recommend Stalwart Banner. Very good feat. As for the last tier 1, Come At Me is kind of a do or die feat. It is good, but is essentially a wasted slot at the later stages of the game. As it says, when you get kills, or when you kill minions or anything like that, you will gain more renown than usual. And renown is what's used to kind of increase your level and get your tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 feats. So by using Come At Me, you're essentially gaining more renown faster and getting access to your tier 2, 3s, and 4s at a much faster rate. The problem is, as it says, you take more damage from attacks, and it stays active for a while, which means if you get ganked or someone attacks you, which is being ganked by if multiple people attack you, then you're ganked. But yes, if you get attacked by literally anybody, they will essentially be dealing half your HP bar in like a couple seconds, not even, with a few attacks, because you take more damage. So it's kind of a risk-reward scenario, but it's good for that regard if you really want to get to your other feats, because you'll have the edge up on your opponents by having your higher feats. For Warden, I don't think it's as great because his other feats are not really as active as they are passive, in the case that they kind of help keep the team alive rather than as a way to just completely demolish opponents. So it's not really something I think you need right away. But there you go. And of course, once you get to your tier 4, you've essentially got a useless tier 1 that doesn't do anything for you. As you already will heal on executions anyway, so realistically, you don't need that. And this end body count will allow you to heal if you just go to the minion lane anyway. So I wouldn't use Come At Me in those scenarios. But again, it's not that bad. As for tier 2, Thrilling Comeback is a pretty good feat as well. Upon getting revenge, you will recover some HP. Very simple. And, well, upon using revenge, I should say, not getting it. And it's not a bad tier 2 by any means. It's pretty good. And compared to the other two as well, it's definitely a pretty good alternative. I find that there's a lot of Wardens that I fight against use this tier 2. They use it over something like Inspire because it inherently keeps you alive longer, which kind of synergizes with the rest of Warden's feats to help him stay alive, to help you essentially deal more damage or do more in a team fight. Especially if you have, if you're getting revenge, which is a scenario in which you are being 2v1'd, usually. You can technically get revenge in a 2v2, but I digress. It's usually a 2v1, 3v1, something like that. You get revenge, you get a little bit more HP, you're in the fight for a little bit longer. Not bad. As for his last tier 3, I wouldn't use this necessarily, but anytime you get a guard break in a throw, it'll knock someone on the ground. It's not an amazing one, especially since Second Wind is so much better. But if you really feel like it, you can. It'll throw people to the ground, enabling you to get a max punish again, which I talked about before. So, if you really want to, it is a funny little meme one to take, and not a lot of people will see it coming, but keep in mind that this isn't a passive feat. This is something you have to activate. If it's white, it's a passive and will always be open once you unlock this feat, and the yellow ones mean you have to press a button to activate them. So this is one that you have to activate, and is only active for a few seconds. So take that as you will. But it's not terrible, but I wouldn't call it very good necessarily compared to, I don't know, Second Wind or Pugna Mortis. I find Second Wind to be the best, but Pugna Mortis second, and this one to be kind of not as great. The last tier 4 is Morale Booster. I've never seen people use this, but if you are using Inspire and Morale Booster, I don't know if they stack. Chances are they don't. Nothing in For Honor tends to stack all that much, but Morale Booster in and of itself is still pretty good as a way to, again, increase damage and whatnot by your teammates. I still would take Stalwart Banner over it, as healing in For Honor is a lot harder to come by than damage boosts, or really the need for damage boosts, since you already deal a lot of damage in For Honor, you tend to. So it's not amazing,